Hey buddy, okay, here's a quick just interval video for you, okay? So key of C, from C to C, that's middle C, because it's in the middle. Turn it down a bit. So you always count, an interval is the space between 2 points, right? It's like an area of space. So the interval is the amount of space between the notes, basically. So the smallest amount of space is a minor second. Like if we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the octave of a major scale. This is the 1, this is a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, that's the 5, 6, 7, that's major 7, and an octave. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it starts again. It actually goes beyond that when we talk about the wider intervals, and I'll get there in a second. But the shortest interval is a minor second. So it's a second, but it's a minor second, which means it's a flat second. It's a smaller second, and it's 1 semitone. So that's a minor second. This is a second. You could call it a major second because it's in the major scale, but it's a second. So minor second, second. This is a minor third. So if we were playing a minor chord, we'd have a minor third. So it's a sad sounding interval. This is a major third. So minor, major. Starting from here, minor, second, second, minor, third, major, third. Okay, so the next interval, and you can also count, it's important to know how many semitones. So if we always start by counting the second note when we're counting notes. So if I'm on a C and I count 1, 2, 3 notes up, 3 semitones up, that's a minor third. And if I count 4, that's a major third. So that's the same for any scale. So if I'm in D, for instance, if I count 1, 2, 3, there's the minor third. 4 would be the major third. So, okay, back to our intervals. Minor second, second, minor third, major third. This is a perfect fourth, it's called. It's one of the 3 perfect intervals, which are octave, fifth, fourth. Okay, so that's a fourth, and that should span 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 semitones. That's the size of it, okay? This is a sharp 4. But a sharp 4 could also be called a flat 5. So if we were on a 5 and we went down, it would be a flat 5. But it's a sharp 4. So we have minor second, second, minor third, major third. Fourth, sharp 4. Okay? That's a perfect fifth. Okay? So if we play a rock bar chord, like a G, we play a G and a D note. Okay, that's a fifth. So back to C. We got minor second, second, minor third, major third. Fourth, sharp 4 or flat 5. And we got to perfect fifth, or just a 5. So the 5 of C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when you're counting scale degrees, these are scale degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do count the first note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5th degree, 6th degree, 7th degree. When you're counting, when you're talking about intervals, or if I say go up 4 semitones, you don't usually count the starting note. You start counting on your first step, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know. Okay, so perfect fifth and flat fifth, or sharp 4. Continue from there. So the next one is a sharp 5. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for a sec because in triads, which are the basic part of a chord, an interval is 2 notes, a chord is 3 notes and more. Okay, so if we make a triad out of a minor third and we add the fifth, that's a minor chord. So C, E flat, G in this case. All right, if we do a major third and add the fifth, we have our major chord. So C major. So C minor, C major. Okay. The other two chords that need to be talked about are, one is augmented. Okay, so that an augmented chord is a major chord, only augmented means it's wider, so we widen the fifth, we go to a sharp 5. So, oh darling, that kind of chord. Whoops. So that's a C augmented. So far we have a minor chord, major chord, augmented chord, okay, which is a major chord with the fifth raised up. Okay, so the G would be a G sharp in this C augmented chord. The other triad worth talking about is a diminished triad, which is all minor thirds. So there's a minor third. So we count up 1, 2, 3 to get to minor third. And then we add another minor third. 1, 2, 3. And if we add another minor third, it becomes a diminished 7. And we can keep going up in minor thirds. So that's a C diminished, which is the same as an E flat diminished, which is the same as an F sharp diminished, which is the same as an A diminished. It's all just minor thirds for a diminished chord. So minor, major, augmented, C diminished. Okay, so let's just quickly, let's play a G diminished chord. G, so we'll count up a minor third. 1, 2, 3. And another one. 1, 2, 3. So that's a G diminished. We could add a 7th to it. Okay, there's G diminished. And again, you can just keep going up in those minor thirds. The last thing I'll say about diminished chords is there's only 3 of them. There's that one, and this one. Because the rest are just repeats, right? So if I go up to this next one, that's just a repeat of the first one. Okay, so I'll play the second one. And that would be starting on E. And this one is the same. So it's really just this one, and this one. And then all the inversions of it going up. So there are 3 diminished chords. But you can say there are 12 or 11 because you can do one on each semitone, but there are 3 diminished systems, I will say. Okay, so we were at the sharp 5. The next one is called a 6, and that sharp 5 incidentally is also called a flat 6, just like a flat 5, and some people call this a flat 3 or a flat 2nd. So flat means lower, sharp means wider or raised, okay? Sharp 5, 6. Now, there's no sharp 6 because it becomes a dominant 7, which is the Beatley kind of 7. If I play a C7, I play a major chord, and I add the dominant 7. Okay? The last interval I'm going to talk about for a second is the major 7, which is the next one that happens in the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the major scale, or the major 7th, like the pat chord. Beatle chord, major 7th, dominant 7th, major 7th. So many people don't know that one. Okay? Now, the reason they call it dominant, I'm just going to explain it quickly, okay? When we have the key of C, for instance, each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scale degrees, you can play a chord. The natural ones, so on a 1 is a major chord, the 2 is a minor chord, the 3 is a minor chord, the 4 chord is major, the 5 chord is major, 6 chord is minor, 7th chord is half diminished, which is the one diminished chord I forgot to mention. And we're back to major again. And if you add 7ths, when we get to the 5, it has that Beatley 7th. And it's called the dominant chord because a dominant chord wants to resolve to the root. So I'm going G7, C, or G7, C. But they call this dominant, because that's the seventh. If this was a G7, this would be a G major 7. La, 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 the jazzy kind of 7. Beatly 7th. Okay, so that's where we got this being called a dominant 7, and this being called major 7. Okay, so quickly, minor second, second, minor third, third, fourth, sharp 4, 5. This is also a flat 5. Sharp 5 or flat 6. 6, major 6, dominant 7, that interval, major 7, that interval. You can do all sorts of stuff with a major 7, but we're going to stick to the interval for now. This is an octave, perfect octave, all right? So those perfect intervals, again, were octave. I believe the seniority is octave, 5th, perfect 4th, 3rd, then minor 3rd, and then it gets more. They used to measure them with which ones were the most consonant-like sounding, which of course an octave or a unison was the most, and an octave. Okay, so it keeps going though. So once we get to the octave, when we do this, it's not known as a minor second anymore, even though it's the same note. It's a minor 9th, because if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? I can't play all those notes. That's a 9th. Baby, you can stay with your father. That kind of sound. Okay, that's a 9th, but that's a major 9th. So this one is called a flat 9. And it usually goes on top of a dominant chord. And it's like a 5 chord. It wants to point to the 5, the 1 of its key, which would be F in this case. Okay, so that's a minor 9th or a flat 9. Major 9. Right, the Beatly kind of chord. Major 9. This one, sharp 9. There's your Jimi Hendrix chord. Purple haze chord, okay? And the reason that makes that sort of sound is because you have a major chord here, and this sharp 9, which is a 9 that's raised sharp, is actually a minor 3rd. So you get major and minor, which is how you get a sharp 9. Sorry, I'm holding the camera, so I can't play the whole thing. Sorry. So that's a sharp 9. The next one is a 10th, which is just what they call a compound 3rd. So there's a 3rd, there's a 10th. Like blackbird. Blackbird sitting in the dead of night. You know what I mean? I can't do it with one hand because it's too far for me. Those are 10ths. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is just a 3rd, all right? This is an 11. 11s don't sound good with major chords unless it's a sharp 11, which is the next interval. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's the sharp 11, which sound great with 7th chords. So that's a C7, add the 9, and a sharp 11. And the one last extension you can add is a 6, but up here it's called a 13. It's a big fat chord. You can also do that with a major 7. And also with minor chords. That's when the normal 11 sounds good, is with a minor chord. So that's an 11. This is a sharp 11, which I just spoke about. This is just a compound 5th. Okay. This is a flat 13. Weird chord. There's different ways you can play a flat 13, though, but it's basically leading up to this, which is a 13, or this one down here was a 6, if you remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a 6. That same note way up here is a 13. Right? And if I were just playing, this would actually be called a 6. These 6, 6, 11, and flat 6, or sorry, 13, 11, and flat 13, they're only called that when the other chord members are there, especially the 7 and the 9. So if we have a 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, then we can call this an 11, and we can call this a 13. But if we don't have all that, let's say we just play 1, 3, I'm going to move that sharp 11 down here. That's a flat 5 chord. Here's a major chord, here's a flat 5 chord. So if we have a C7, and we just lower that, it's a C7 flat 5, like the Simpsons chord. Okay, flat 5. But when it has all this stuff, then it's a sharp 11. So the 11 and the 13 aren't really called that unless they have a 7th and a 9th. Okay, and then that's about it. This is just a 7. Repeat of these ones, but those are the main ones. One last time: minor second, second, minor third, third, fourth or perfect fourth, sharp 4 or flat 5, fifth, sharp 5 or flat 6, 6. By the way, that's like the pretty Paul McCartney chord is a C6 or a 6th chord, which is a major chord plus a 6th. We got to 6, then we have dominant 7, major 7, octave, and we have flat 9, okay, and we have 9, we have sharp 9. Again, this is the interval between the first note and this is a sharp 9. Compound 3rd or 10th. That's an 11, which sounds nice with minor chords. Otherwise, it's a sus. Which is, I didn't talk about sus chords yet, which I will in a sec. This video's getting long. How far did we get there? Octave, minor 9th, sharp 9, 10th, 11th, then our sharp 11. Now if you notice, this is just a C7 with a D on top. So if you play any chord plus the next tone up chord, so in other words, a D chord on top of a C7, you'll get that sound. Then the compound 5th is just a compound 5th. That's a flat 13, which might sound good with other kinds of chords. Not that one, sorry. Yeah, like that. Long story with that chord. I'm not going to go further in that one. Then we have our regular 13. When I say major or dominant, I'm switching between the 7ths here. Your major 7th and dominant 7th. A little bit of a different chord there. And then this is just another 7th. This just repeats. The last chord I didn't mention was a sus chord, which is when you take a major chord, like let's say C, and instead of using a 3rd, you raise it to a 4th. But you don't keep it. You can't use it with the 4th very nicely. So that's a sus chord. And sus chords want to resolve back to where they came from. It's like you'll hear that at an end of a classical piece. Right? So that's a sus 4. add a seventh to that. Right? The other sus is we go back to our major chord, and instead of going up to a fourth, we go down to a second. But in this case, it's called a sus2. That's a country chord.